Hello everyone and welcome back to another round of Tuesday Night Legacy. Tonight we have a Legacy match for you. This is Yorion Zenith versus Goblins. On the left we have one of the store owners, Max, playing a 5-color Yorion Zenith list. This deck uses Green Sun Zenith to go and find all sorts of fun green creatures to put into play. This is, of course, a mid-range control deck. Now, this is an older list back from June when this video was recorded. He's since put some other cooler things in it, but some of the highlights of this deck are Leovold, Emissary of Trest, Omnath, Locus of Creation, of course, Uro, Titans of Nature's Wrath, because it is playing both blue and green, so why wouldn't you play this creature? And on the very top end, we have Primeval Titan to be able to go and find all sorts of cool lands, including, where is it? The Field of the Dead, which can end up just making a huge army of zombies for you if you are having trouble closing out the game with your giant value creatures. This deck also has a bunch of planeswalkers in the form of Grist, Narset, and Teferi in order to give you even more advantage with their annoying abilities. And because it's a blue deck, it also has 4 Force of Will and 2 Force of Negation. So it's controlling what the opponent is able to do at any given time and then playing these awesome value creatures and just basically pushing the opponent out of the game because your creatures are just so much better than theirs. And then on the right, we have a player I never caught the name of playing Midrange Goblins. Now, this was before the reprinting of Food Chain, so this is primarily a black and red deck with a splash of green. The green is for the Masked Vandal, being able to actually exile an artifact or enchantment, which this deck has always struggled with, getting rid of enchantments. Because this creature is a changeling, it happens to be a goblin, so you can do all the things that you would normally do with other goblins. Now, this is the mid-range version, which means it is playing a playset of Aether Vials, and it also has the Rishadan Ports and Wastelands, taxing down the opponent's land base like a Death and Taxes deck would, but instead of having taxing creatures, instead it runs goblins. Things like Goblin Lackey in order to get Muxus into play, hopefully on turn 2, and if not, it tries to close out the game with things like Goblin Ringleader, getting a bunch of advantage, drawing a bunch of extra goblins, Goblin Pile Driver being able to get in there and do a ton of damage, and just a bunch of other little goblins that all do different things, like Twin Shot Sniper getting to deal some damage, Sting Scourger can bounce things back to hand, Skirk Prospector can turn goblins into more goblins by sacrificing for mana, and Sling Gang Lieutenant can potentially drain your opponent out of the game without having to attack. With all that being said, let's get the game started. We have Goblins on the play here. We see a Wooded Foothills come to play, a Prismatic Vista from Max. Obviously, didn't even talk about Yorion, the Sky Nomad, being his companion. This creature requires you to run an additional 20 cards in your deck, but that's just fine for this mid-range control deck. Just having a couple more cards and a few extra lands and more playsets of good cards that you want to have. And in Max's case, having an even larger toolbox than a normal 60-card deck would. And if you put this guy into your hand for the 3 mana that is required for the special action of the companion, then you pay 5 to give it in play, and you can flicker everything in play, including these Abundant Growths that are these enchantments that turn your lands into rainbow lands, and you also get to draw a card when it enters the battlefield. We're seeing on the other side of the battlefield a Mog War Marshal, creating that token, paying the Echo cost, keeping him in play. So whenever he enters the battlefield, you get a goblin, and whenever he dies, you get a goblin. So if the Echo cost gets paid, then you can use him later, maybe with the Skirk Prospector or with the Sling Gang Lieutenant to get some extra value there. We see Max flashing in one of his creatures, the Icefang Codal. Now, this could have traded with either the Goblin or the War Marshal, but Max decided that it was more value to just have him in play, gain some Death Touch once he had enough basic snow covers in play, and just hang on to him there. He just wants to draw that extra card. Max deploying his Leovold. This is a big problem for the Goblins deck, as the first sentence there doesn't really matter. Goblins is not drawing a ton of extra cards each turn, so drawing just one card a turn, not a big deal. As almost all of the advantage that Goblins gets is off of things like Ringleader and Muxus. That was an excellent Ringleader trigger. We saw the top 4 cards of the library were all Goblins, 2 Pile Drivers, a Prospector, and a Goblin Lackey, so those all go to hand. That was pay 4, get a 2/2 with haste, draw 4. Seems pretty good. It's not actually drawing, though. It just reveals them and puts them in the hand, so it gets around Leovold. The secondary condition of Leovold, though, is whenever you are a permanent, you are targeted, becomes the target of a spell or ability, then you get to draw a card. So really hard to deal with since a lot of Goblin stuff is targeted removal. We see a Knight of Autumn coming into play here. Kind of an interesting main board include, but it is a way to destroy target artifact or enchantment off of a green sun, so that's pretty good. I think Max decided to just gain 4 life here to kind of shore up his life differential. Goblins player just dropping a ton of Goblins into play, 2 Pile Drivers and the Goblin Lackey. Now, Pile Drivers do have protection from blue, and they can get buffed for each other attacking Goblin. But we are seeing Omnath come into play here. Omnath, Locus of Creation, the newest Omnath, the one that's the big borderless version right now. Off of all these, are they game days or GP champions? I'm not sure. There's so many cards that come out, but you guys know the one I'm talking about. It doesn't have any of this text on here, which is kind of crazy because this card has an insane amount of text. Draw a card when it enters, and then Landfall has 3 separate abilities. The first land, you gain 4 life. The second land, you get 4 mana, almost Wooburg. And then the third time, it deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. All right, so we're seeing a Goblin Chain Whirler coming in here, 3 red mana, dealing 1 damage to each creature in play and each planeswalker and each opponent. That's going to clear out 2 of his creatures. Now, the good news is that Leovold is not... It doesn't really come into play here because Chain Whirler is not targeting. It's just a blanket damage. So no cards are drawn because of the Chain Whirler effect. Both Leovold and Omnath have 1 damage marked on them. Seeing a fetch land here, getting a basic mountain. See, the Goblins player has all of their duels in place, some Taigas, some Badlands. 1 mana. Skirk Prospector deployed. Skirk Prospector being able to sacrifice Goblins to get red mana. 2 mana paid. Maybe black, maybe red, not sure. So both the token and the War Marshal go for the Twin Shot Sniper, dealing 2 damage to target creature or player when it enters the battlefield. Targeting Leovold, getting 2 damage more marked on it, so that's going to get rid of it. Max does get to draw a card here. Max deciding not to block with Omnath with this 2 damage coming across here. Even though he is a 4/4, Max is just a little bit scared he can somehow mark another damage on his Omnath, and Max really wants to ride this guy to victory. So gaining 4 life by playing the Dryad Arbor, playing a Birds of Paradise, and paying 3 to put Yorion into hand. This is a special action. It's not an activated ability of the card. Ooh. Well, we got a Muxus here. Muxus is the big payoff of the Goblins deck. Check the top 6 cards of the library. Put all Goblins that are CMC 5 or less onto the battlefield. Now that was a whifferino if I've ever seen one. Only 2 Goblins into play. One is a Masked Vandal, exiling the Abundant Growth. And then Twin Shot Sniper gets to declare 2 more damage. And so he's going to shoot down that Birds of Paradise. And it looks like Goblins is trying to decide who I'm going to attack with. Decides no one. Kind of mushing into a 4/4 there isn't the best idea. Especially with the 2 Pile Drivers already taken care of due to prismatic endings, I believe, on both of them. a few turns ago here. So we see Omnath already doing a lot of work here. Wasteland getting played, getting to gain another 4 life, blowing up Cavernous Souls, paying 5 mana to put Yorion into play, which is going to flicker that Omnath at end of turn, drawing an extra card. So now we got a 5/4 fly or 4/5 flyer and a 4/4 big boy. Muxus is crashing in here. We've got 8 other goblins, so this is a 12/12 coming across, but the only problem here is it does not have trample. So Max points to his Dryad Arbor he's got hanging out in the corner over there and says, yeah, I'll block with this. No problem. So this little 1/1 chumped and a Ramunap Excavator coming into play off of, or just naturally out of Max's hand, getting that 1/1 blocker back and gaining another 4 life. So this has stonewalled the Goblins player. If he cannot deal with either the Excavator or exiling that Dryad Arbor somehow, attacking with this Muxus is not going to matter because it's just going to get blocked by this 1/1 every single turn. And now Max is closing out the game by attacking with this 4/5 flyer in the air. He does have 2 creatures with reach in the Twin Shot Sniper, but they are 2/3s. So blocking the Yorion here does not feel very good because it would just be chumps. Can't get it out of the air. See an Aether Vial come down a little bit late, a lot a bit late. Want to see Aether Vial on the first or second turn of the game. Seeing some mana being paid here. Munitions Expert would have been great if not for Force of Will. Munitions Expert would have dealt upwards of 9-10 damage, I think, to the source of Goblin's Choice, but Force of Will says no thanks. Seeing the Dryad Arbor redeployed and Endurance being played. Endurance taking away Goblin's Graveyard, putting it on the bottom of the library. Goblin's trying to mush in again here for another 12 or 13. Well, I guess that was last turn. We're seeing a Green Sun Zenith for 3. Could be all kinds of different things. Could be an Eternal Witness, which is still in this list. Could be... already got the Excavator. Could be Uro. Oh, it's going to be Grist. So Grist does count as a green creature while it's in your library. It's basically a creature everywhere in every... as long as it's not on the battlefield, it is a green creature. So in your hand, in exile, whatever, what have you, in the grave. But when it's on the battlefield, it's Planeswalker. And you can -2 to sacrifice a little guy to destroy target creature. Or Planeswalker. So blowing up Muxus, dealing with that threat. And we're seeing a Crater Maker come down. Goblin Crater Maker, a great card, but not super useful here. Can deal 2 damage to target creature, can't even kill the Excavator. Could blow up an Emrakul, but Emrakul is not in this match. Just kind of a fun fact about Crater Maker. We see a plus on Yorion, which is going to put a Life from the Loam into Max's grave, which could theoretically matter later in the game here. Playing a Wasteland from the Ramunap Excavator's ability, blowing up Taiga, gaining another 4 life, up to 42 for Max. This isn't looking great for the Goblins player. Still has a Skirk Prospector, so another Muxus is possible here, but apparently that wasn't in his hand, so we are going to game 2. Goblins with a fantastic turn 1 play, Cavern of Souls into Goblin Lackey, being uncounterable. Unfortunately, Goblin Lackey dies to literally every piece of removal in this format, and we are going to see a Swords to Plowshares get rid of that Goblin Lackey on Max's turn. Getting to gain a life, but no more Lackey. So the Mog War Marshal coming back out here in game 2. And Gonna blow up that Cavern of Souls with the Wasteland. Early Wasteland. Cannot pay the Echo for the Mog War Marshal, so just getting the Goblin tokens into play here. Seeing an Arid Mesa. 1 mana paid. Skirk Prospector. So theoretically, next turn, if there's a land played, we could see a Muxus, 3 lands and 3 goblins. Max deciding he's fine with just a basic forest and basic plains at the moment here. An abundant growth. This rainbow land being able to tap for anything. Very, very resilient to Wasteland. Being able to use abundant growth to kind of get around that. Abundant growth kind of sort of the answer to not being able to have Astrolabe, Arkham's Astrolabe in this format anymore. That used to be the go-to filter answer and would create all of these 5-color good stuff decks. But with that card being banned, you know, you needed something else. And that does an approximation of drawing a card and also having access to any color. A munitions expert coming in, killing the Dryad Arbor. Icefang Kotal being flashed in to be able to block the Skirk Prospector, which is pretty unfortunate for Goblins. So has lost access to a potential Muxus next turn with these 4 Goblins that he did have. So now they're just 1/1s, not potential red sources. And stuck on 2 lands is pretty tough. And that is the most tough. So that is a Plague Engineer coming in here. This comes out of the sideboard. Since you have access to all colors, why not play some of the best removal? Giving -1/-1 statically to all Goblin creatures. So all these 1/1s just die. Wasteland taking out one of the 2 lands that Goblins had left. Very rough. And Narset coming down saying you can't draw extra cards, and I'm going to reveal a Life from the Loam. Life from the Loam off that trigger, or that activated ability, the -2. And so now with this next turn, I mean, I think it's a good idea for Max to just dredge back up or cast that Life. Grab the Wasteland. Double Wasteland. Ooh, geez. Blow up the Badlands. And now Goblins has 1 mountain in play. Pretty rough stuff. Max checking his hand here. He's probably over on cards since he loamed back 3 cards to his hand. And getting an extra piece of advantage as well. Having to discard. Showing the Green Sun Zenith, of course, being able to go and get an XCMC green creature from the deck. Just a Wooded Foothills pass from Goblins. You know, if we got 7 more turns here, this Plague Engineer might close out the game. Oh, here we go. That increases the clock. An Icefang Kotal coming down. Gaining some life. Or not gaining some life, drawing a card. Ooh, a Pyrokinesis from Goblins. Exiling a Blood Moon, which is a fairly dead card now. Never being able to get to 3 mana. Dealing up to 4 damage divided among creatures in play. Getting rid of the Plague Engineer and the Icefang Kotal. But it is not a Fury, so it cannot deal that extra 1 damage to the Narset. Teferi Time Raveler being deployed here. No longer being able to have access to instant speed tricks. Plussing up, being able to cast sorceries as though they had flash. Makes Ponders and Prismatic Endings much better. And even a Green Sun Zenith. Zenith at the end of your turn. Don't mind if I do. Max may be forgetting that he has access. Oh, no. He knew. He was pondering at the end of Goblin's turn. minusing to get rid of a token, return it to hand, make it go away forever. A big Green Sun Zenith is going to get an Omnath. Yeah, that's pretty good. Omnath only costing 4, since it's Woo-Erg. No black. Getting to draw that card. Play a Windswept Heath, go and fetch up a land, gain 4 life, get Woo-Erg again. So he has access to 4 more mana. And also has the land, of course, that he's fetching up. So that's 5 mana. And that's going to be Uro. Can we play Uro? Yes, we can. And that's going to be an extra land drop that's going to deal 4 damage to the Goblins player. No reason to fetch this land now, because Omnath does only has 4 different landfall conditions. Decides to let Mogg War Marshal die. With Omnath in play, a good blocker can't even get rid of Narset anyways. So I can see why that would be the case. This feels a little inevitable here. I think Max has taken a commanding lead in the game here. Getting some mana at the end just to gain some more life. There's even more life. Teferi ticking up. Have access to sorceries. Casting Uro. Getting to play an extra land. Draw an extra card. Gain some more life. And it's another fetch land. We're going to put Yorion into hand with the mana created from Omnath. Get to play that land off of a fetch down to 4 due to Omnath's ability. And now, I mean, maybe you can turn Omnath sideways. Well, it looks like Max has some sort of plan here. I'm not sure if he's going to finish out the game. He's got a lot of mana open, though. Oh, it's going to be Yorion. Yorion, pretty good. Bouncing everybody except Uro. If he bounced Uro, then he would die. And go back to the graveyard because he was not escaped. Drawing an extra card. Getting these Abundant Growths. Drawing 3 cards from the 2 Abundant Growths in the Omnath. Resetting the Planeswalkers. But he can't use them right now because it's technically end of turn. So Goblins has this final turn here. Decides to play a Sting Scourger to bounce Uro, and then decides to concede because pretty inevitable from there. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel if you want to see more of this content in the future. We have a bunch more of these on the channel, so go check out our backlog to see some other premium content. If you're curious about a deck you saw played here, the deck lists are always in the description of the video below. Thanks as always to Spellhold Games for letting us play at their store, and we'll see you next time for some more Magic content on Tuesday Night Legacy. Bye!